I am absolutely positive. When I went to the University of Washington back in 1975, and I told my friends we were going to the Rose Bowl before I left the University of Washington, most of them thought I was crazy. But I proved to them anything truly is possible. I hope you realize how significant mental toughness is. And when you talk about mental toughness, it's really about honesty. It's about you having an honest conversation with yourself. It really is. You can't just say that I want to win a championship. You can't just say that I'm tougher than so-and-so. First and foremost, you have to believe that you can win a championship. And you have to believe that you are tougher than so-and-so. And then you have to go out and prepare yourself each and every day to live up to those dreams and aspirations that you set for yourself. You know, it's funny when you talk about mental toughness. You know, it's kind of like, I like to say that we are neither successful nor are we unsuccessful due to happenstance. It's all based on four soft factors: habits, attitudes, beliefs, and expectations. And when you start having those conversations with yourself, and it's about habits, attitudes, beliefs, and expectations, the more honest you are with yourself, the stronger you become, the better individual you become. Because at that point in time, for me at least, whenever I would set a goal, I'd have an honest conversation with myself. And it would go like, what have I done today to move me that much closer to that goal? And even more so, what have I done today to take me away? If I found myself doing more things taking me away, then guess what? I wasn't serious about it. Because anything I was serious about, and I want you to think along the same lines too, anything that you were serious about, anything that you thought that you were good at, anything you believed you were worthy of, anything that someone who you gave sanction to told you you could do these things, you went after them like gangbusters. And it's okay to set a goal, but be realistic about it. And you start being realistic when you have those honest conversations with yourself. You know, 2 or 3 times a week. Just checking yourself out, thinking about what you did. And I would advise you to have your players do that. You know, set team goals, set individual goals. And with the realization that, you know, team goals should always trump individual goals. And that was a mistake I made at Alabama, because one of their best players apologized to his teammates one year because he allowed his individual goals to supersede the team goals. And he promised them that it would never happen again. And I remember I was working back at Alabama with a good friend of mine, and I told him that, you know, they are on their way. And sure enough, that's when they won their first national championship. It helps you be more consistent, determined, focused, confident, resilient, and in control under pressure. You know, I can tell you once again from playing at the University of Washington, being the underdog against SC or UCLA at the time, and finding a way to beat those teams. You know, that consistency starts and ends with, what do you truly think of yourself? You know, with your players, always have them write down their goals. Ask them, what do you think of yourself? I think when you look at the the championship teams, they've always thought highly of themselves. They've always put in the work. They've always been consistent. Most importantly, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are models already out there. The guys that practice the hardest, the guys that study the most, the guys that prepare themselves the best, more times than not, are the guys that are playing for a championship. There are a lot of talented teams that, quote unquote, do not play up to their potential. So how do you get teams to consistently play up to their play up to their potential? And it starts and ends with what they think of themselves, how they prepare themselves. So when we looked at those graphs and they had that little slither for mental, I beg to differ. You have to have it within yourself to know that you can accomplish these goals, that you are mentally tough enough to overcome any obstacle put in front of you. And I'm glad this next sign came up. Training the mind is every bit as important as training the body. You know, one of my coaches made a statement one day. We were watching film, and he said about one of my teammates, he was a big guy, muscle bound, everything. He said, "You look like Tarzan, but you play like Jane." And it was so true. He said some other things too, and he really broke the guy down. But we got with him and we built him back up, and you know, we shared with him that, you know, what he said was harsh, but it wasn't untrue. So how do you prevent that from happening again? Well, as a defensive lineman, you don't let people push you back to the secondary anymore, especially when you were as big as this guy was. And so one's mindset, I'll say, is even more important than training the body. The term efficacy, I'm going to leave it on the screen for a little bit because it's very important. It's one's causative powers, one's belief. I'm going to give you time to write the definition down. One's appraisal of oneself, of what they can cause, bring about, or make happen. You know, it really goes back to what I said early on when I first came on. You know, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. And those of us that are efficacious, have a high self-efficacy, we believe we can. But we also work at it. We also put in the time. Collective efficacy. For me, I've always said that football is the greatest team sport in the world. You can have a great quarterback and a receiver that can't catch a cold, and he'll be wasted. You know, you can have a great running back and a so-so offensive line. I would say with the exception of Barry Sanders, and they not accomplish a whole lot. So you really have to make sure that not just yourself, but your teammates are prepared. And this is what I was talking about earlier. When you talk about team goals, they need to write down their team goals and post them. Because when you write things down and post it, it almost takes on a life of its own. It looks back at you. It's a friendly reminder of what you told yourself you wanted to accomplish. achieving unprecedented, record-breaking performance. I know anything is possible. We have an interesting picture here on the screen. Now, I know most of you see this old guy with the big hat. He doesn't have a top lip. But right where his neckline is, if you put your hand right there, you ought to see a young face. And I hope you're able to pick up that young face. Yeah. That's called SCOTOMA. We all have blind spots. The mind sees what it chooses to see. You know, the first time I learned about scotomas, I knew I had left my keys in the bedroom. And I went in, and I know it's happened to you too, where you'll put something down and somebody will say to you that, you know, no, they're right there. And you'd be like, no, you're playing with me, or who put those keys there? So instead of me getting upset about not being able to see the keys, I left my room, you know, poured me a glass of orange juice, took a deep breath, went back in there, and there were my keys, right there at the end of the bed. Now, when I was in the room at that point, I could not see them. So don't panic when you have a scotoma. Just relax.